Welcome to Chrisley Confessions 2.0. It's just me today. Well, actually, me and my dear friend, Sharita Mona.
Hi.
Thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
It is. It's a little bit of a surreal moment.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, but so many of you follow Savannah on Unlocked, that I know you've already seen Sharita. Sharita is a dear friend of mine who we met while in Lexington. You know, we're just going to talk about today our life then and where we are today. More importantly, where we are today. Yeah. So let's just delve right in. When did we actually meet? Do you remember? You have a way better memory than I do.
Well, I have a journal.
Yes.
So I have a journal. I journaled the whole time. So I actually went back to that journal to like reread and refresh my memory. So I'm going to tell you when I knew you were coming.
Okay.
So I have a friend who used to be working a private investigator's office. And somehow she gets these alerts. I'm not quite sure. And so she sent me an email, and it was actually 3 days before you got there. And she said there was some kind of notification that Julie Chrisley has been moved to a women's federal medical facility in Kentucky. Your prison is the only one. And I was like, no, she's not, because in the prison, people keep up with everything. They keep up with other cases, especially high profile cases like yours was. And I said, no, I think she's going to Florida. And she was like, no, I'm telling you, it's an alert. And that's the only place. This is the only option. She's got to be coming to Kentucky. So I was like, So I remember sharing it with a couple people, not a lot, just like some close friends at the time. I was like, hey, I think Julie Chrisley's coming here. And they're like, no, she's not. She's going to Florida. And I was like, no. And my friend, she doesn't, I call her L doesn't miss. She never misses. She's pretty much on point. So I remember, I think like the day before is when the rumor hit the rumor mill, like she's coming. So we knew you were coming.
And keep in mind, when something hits, it hits quick, because it was small. We had maybe 250 for us. Right. That was kind of the high point. Was about 250 women. Right. So when something happened, everybody knew about it.
Everybody knows. So I remember that day that you came, I was in the TV room, and you know, the windows looking out onto the camp, you can see the cars coming up. And it was around, I want to say between like maybe 11 and noon. I remember standing in the window and I saw the trucks coming, and I was like, so she did come. I was like, Elle was right. She's here.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, right. So fast forward, at the time I was had just gotten a position in a new program. It was the culinary events program. And I think you were in commissary when you first got there.
Yep.
And the officer knew that you were into cooking. Right. And so she spoke with another one of the girls, and she said, do you think she would be interested in coming to work in the culinary program? And she said, I'm gonna find out. Her name was Amy. She said, I'm gonna ask her, I'm gonna find out. And we were in the process of studying for Safe Serve. And somehow, like the next meeting that we had for the people that were working, you came.
Right. Yeah. 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 And I ended up sitting in on that, and then ended up getting my certification as well. And it kind of blossomed from there.
Well, the time so when you and I were together, we were studying. Well, what was supposed to happen, there were 3 of us that were supposed to meet to study for Safe Serve. She didn't show up.
Right.
And we were downstairs in front of the GED room, and she never came. So it ended up being just the 2 of us.
Okay.
And so we were sitting there, and I remember, I think my question was, I was like, how are you doing? And I was like, I know for you, like for a lot of people, this is a big change. Yeah. But for you, this has got to be even bigger of an adjustment to go from one extreme to now, sleeping in a cot. Basically with 12 other people around you. Yeah. And so that's when we started talking. And so the relationship grew from being in the culinary program.
Yes, it did, because everyone knows my passion is food. My passion's cooking. You are creative, and you actually brought a program into the culinary event planning space in Lexington, which was the balloon art, which was amazing. Yeah. I remember you had some photos brought in, and we were all like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I've paid people to do this for me before. And you're like, yes. And it was just so refreshing to have someone else that had that fire in their gut, that we knew we were there for a certain amount of time, but I feel like we did the best we could do with what we had.
Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly.
For sure. And then you shared with me your letters to your daughter. And I thought that was the coolest thing.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that, because you now have a book about it.
Yes. So because you kind of were heading up the culinary part. You were in charge of making the menus. I was in charge of the decor part.
Right.
We ended up meeting outside in the pavilion a few times. And I was like, I've been working on something. I've been writing these letters. I'm thinking about making it into a book. What do you think about it? And you were like, you should do it. You should do it. Right. And also you were taught the real estate class too. We'll talk about that. But I was like, I've been writing these letters and I'm thinking about publishing into a book. And you told me about one of your friends that had published a book. You were like, when you get out, I'm going to hook you up with her. I want you to think about it. And you gave me the book.
I think I shared with you. It was Mallory Irvin's book.
Yes. And then you always had the best books. So I kept coming down to your room. I'd get a book and I'd come back and you'd be like, hold on. And you dig in and go up under in your locker. You had all these books and you give me these books. I go read them and come back. Right. And so that's how, it just continued to build. But going back to Letters to My Daughters from the Inside, which was a book that basically was birthed because I think before you got there was a period that we had run out of stamps. So I wasn't able to mail these letters. So I just kept the letters on a legal pad and just kept writing them. And eventually I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make these letters a book. So over a period of time, I was writing my daughters. Something would happen in the prison and then it would kind of make me reflect. And I was like, I want to tell them. But instead of calling them and telling them the gossip or whatever, I would be like, here's what's happening. Here's the lesson that I learned. So it just, they began to compile and then it turned into a book.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It just shows you that our time there wasn't in vain.
No.
It really wasn't in vain. And you and I have had so many conversations just since I've been out about just relationships and the relationships that we build. And there is something about this closeness, I don't even know how to describe it, because it is a bond that you have that you can't replicate it.
Right.
And we talked about this. We've had friends that we've had for 20 years. And yes, I have dear friends and I love them. I cherish that relationship so much. But the relationships that you build, and not all relationships this way. I think if you're blessed and you're lucky enough to have these kind of relationships, then you're blessed and lucky enough. But it's just so different because I think when you've experienced pain like that and you've experienced, there's that old saying, till you walked a mile in my shoes, you don't know. But we kind of walked in our shoes together.
Right.
And I think it gives this bond that is just, and I think you come to, when you're in prison, you don't have anything to give. No one can get anything from you, really. It's the most real, organic, for me, relationship, because we bonded over this likeness, over this spirit that we have, that of being like-minded, and our hearts are alike. We feel certain ways about certain things, and even though we come maybe from completely different walks of life, we have this bond that kind of supersedes any of that other stuff. Right. Whether it's color, whether it's political views, whether it's religion, whether it's any of that. I think this is so much different.
Yes, and I think when you meet people, again, like you said, you're stripped down. Yeah, it's an even playing ground. We have the same clothes. Yep. We got the same amount of money on our books. We have the same amount of time. We're working the same jobs. You're in the same space 24 hours, 7 days a week. You're experiencing the same things. You're witnessing the same stuff. It's just grows, I would say, a lot faster, but a lot more organically and just more pure, because like you said, we're not able to go out to dinner. We're not going to the movies. There's no distraction.
Right. And where we were, in Kentucky is different. I think. I mean, I don't really have anything to compare it to
Right.
other than what other women come and say. But I know most of the other prisons are much larger.
Right.
So we were we were in one building, and that's where we ate. That's where we slept. That's where we worshiped. That's where we watched TV. That's where we did everything in this one building. So it is different because, even though you've got a best friend, you're not seeing them every single day, waking up, going to bed, eating, sleeping, praying, whatever. You're just not doing that.
Right.
So I think you're so right that the relationships become just so much more so quickly.
Right. And you're experiencing all the same things.
Right.
Unlike whenever you're out and people may be going to their own jobs, to their own families.
Right.
We're basically sharing the same family. We're sharing the same house. We're sharing the same food. We're sharing everything for the most part.
And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly. I don't think we can sit here and talk about this that we don't talk about. You lost your father when we were in prison.
Yes.
And I will never forget that. I will never forget. I was upstairs on the 3rd floor. I was sitting there playing cards, and you were, I think you were getting ready to leave. And you stopped, and we talked. And that's something that I feel like we had to be there for each other because it was all we had. Now, you were lucky enough that you got to go home and you got to be with your family for a couple of days. But then you had to come back. You had to come back and you had to grieve there because you didn't grieve in those 2 days you were gone. And I think it totally changes your perspective on so many things.
Right. Yeah. That was tough because when I left in August, when I reported to prison, my idea of what was going to happen outside back home was everybody stay right here. Don't move. Don't breathe. I will be back. Just stay and I'll come back.
Right.
And that didn't happen. When I came back less a very important, significant person in my life. And so I was like, things changed. I mean, and that wasn't the only thing that changed, but that was so huge. But to your point, I think I was the second person to get a furlough after COVID.
Right.
There was one other woman, and then I was the second one. And it was a little bit of pressure because they were like, you got to behave. You need to do this. Don't mess up because other people, this is how we're going to determine if we're going to keep giving furloughs based on the behavior and different things of the ones that are now starting to go. But it was tough because I ran in. They gave me 72 hours to go get all the way to North Carolina and back to Kentucky. And it was just basically getting what I could get done. But the grieving didn't happen until I got back. And then the grieving really didn't happen until I got back home.
Right. Yeah. And I think Todd and I have talked about this on this podcast before, how when you go into prison, like you said, you're leaving and you're leaving your family a certain way. And in your mind, it kind of stops. Like in your mind, it kind of stops because it stopped for you because you're not there.
Right.
But it hasn't stopped. It doesn't stop for your children, for your family. And, whether it's good and bad, you miss it. You're missing those times that you can't get back. If you're a homeowner, you need to hear this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document, use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. So, when's the last time you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Chrisley at HomeTitleLock.com and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring on your title. Urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Protect yourself like I did, don't be a victim, and protect your equity today. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code Chrisley. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Chrisley. All right, let's be real. Life moves fast, really fast. You're juggling work, family, goals, and trying to show up as your best self every day. But if your gut health is off, everything is off. Not just your digestion either, but your mood, your energy, your focus. It all starts in your gut. And that's why we love Just Thrive Probiotic. Most probiotics never make it to your gut alive, but Just Thrive is clinically proven to arrive in your gut 100% alive and actually work. For you, that means less bloat, healthy immunity, and that steady, feel-good energy all day. So here's our challenge. Let's try Just Thrive for 90 days risk-free. Feel the difference in your digestion, your energy, your sleep, your whole life. And if you don't, get a full product refund, no questions asked. Go to justthrivehealth.com/confessions to save 20%. Take the 90-day Just Thrive challenge today, because when your gut thrives, you thrive. That's justthrivehealth.com/confessions. We were actually talking earlier today how, there's no way you can go through something like this and be the same person.
Right.
You just can't.
No, I don't. And I think a part of the purpose of us going through it is so that we're not the same anymore. But I'll say this for myself: when I transitioned back, it was like trying to put my old self, my new self, into an old environment or an old set of expectations and old relationships, and not in a bad way. It just didn't necessarily fit back the way that it did before. Because I was different. Yeah. People were different. And I'm not saying out of sight, out of mind, because I don't ever think I was out of mind. But people do adjust to you being away in their own way, because they have to cope too.
Absolutely.
So they develop new habits and new norms. So if you're used to talking to somebody on the phone every day and you're not talking to them anymore, when I got back, the calls didn't pick back up because they had adjusted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And life goes on, and life goes on. And I think it's why it's so hard for so many people when they come out of prison to just adjust, to just, because you're expected to just fit right back in where you left off, and you just can't do that. It's not possible to do that.
I remember, I think it was, the episode, some of the clips that had come out whenever you were released, and people kept saying, "Oh, Julie looks different. Julie's different." I was like, she is though. Like, she is different. I don't think you understand. Like, I don't really think you all are going to really know, but I can only imagine, like, she's in a different place, just as and not in a bad way. It's just, it's different.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. And, and as a matter of fact, today marks 90 days that we've been out. So, that seems like, oh my gosh, so long, but really 90 days is nothing.
No.
91 days ago, I was sitting in prison thinking I was going to do a couple more years there, and now here I am 90 days later sitting here with you, which is crazy. It really is crazy if you think about it. And I think until you've done it, you can't even comprehend it.
Right.
Like, it's something that you cannot even comprehend.
Right.
But we had our times. We had our good times in prison. I'm going to say, we did. I feel like you and I handled it very similarly in that we stayed busy. We stayed busy, and that we were determined not to let it. Yeah, we had our hard days, but not to let it get us down.
Right.
I taught the real estate class. And I'll never forget one day I came to your room, and you had a few of the younger girls were in there, and they're like, what do we do? What do we do after this? And I was telling them, the only thing I really know to do, and that was real estate. But I feel like in so many ways we were able to mentor. We were able to just be an example for some of these girls that have never had it.
Right. I remember that day so vividly, because I was trying to talk them out of going back into like a criminal lifestyle. And I was like, no, don't do it. Don't go back.
Right.
And you just so happened to pop up. And sometimes you would always pop up, and you'd be like, you look through the door, you'd be like, what you doing? And I'd be sitting on my bed, and I say, Julie Chrisley, what you doing? And then we just start talking about stuff. But that day I was like, Julie, help me, come help me convince them not to return back to, I think they were, selling drugs. And I was like, can you tell me something else they can do? And you were like, real estate. You was like, no, I'm telling you. And then you started like breaking it all down.
Right. That there's so many different aspects of real estate. You may not be able to hold a real estate license, but you can do this, this, and this.
Right.
And it's amazing to me, people, before I went to prison, I'm sure it was the same way for you, that they're like, you're going to a camp. Oh. It's just like, it's all white collar crimes. It's all whatever. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what your crime is or what you've been accused of, because as Todd says many times, prison is the greatest equalizer that there is, because when you get in there, it's no different.
And nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Like, I can't tell you. I did not come home and start Googling what people's crimes were, because I don't care. If you were my friend in there, you were my friend in there, and you're going to be my friend now, and but it's not that way, and there is there's so many of these young women who have never had any kind of guidance at all. And they are just so hungry for it because they've never had it. Right. So you have 3 girls, we have children. We've been a parent for probably our longest job we've ever had is being a parent, and so you do get to have a little bit of that while you're in there, because they want it. That's all we know is to be a mom. Even though it looks different from in there. Right. And that's one of the toughest things I think about being there.
And I think too, when you talk about when you've been a mother, or you've been a wife, or you've been a daughter, you've taken on so many roles for so long, I think that's where it gets a little different for how women cope in due time.
Yes.
Because we are then going from wearing all of these hats and doing all of these things to only having to wear the hat of yourself. Yeah. And so that's, for me, it was one of the first time that I only had to deal with myself.
Me too.
Because for almost 30 years, as old as my oldest daughter, I've always I've been responsible or had an obligation to do something and to care for and provide for and make sure somebody else was good before me.
Absolutely.
So now I, in a weird way, get to only, it's sad that it took this for me to have to only worry about making sure I was in my room at whatever time count was. Other than that, everything else was semi-optional.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. And you get into that mindset because it's almost a survival mode that you become selfish in a way,
right?
Because you have to do whatever you can to protect your peace, to take care of you, because you don't have all the external luxuries of being able to take care of you. You've got to really dig down deep to do it.
But I needed it.
Absolutely.
I needed it.
Absolutely. I did too.
I always say I was incarcerated long before I got to prison.
Oh, 100%.
And it wasn't the physical prison.
It was the mental.
It was the mental prison. It was the go, do, other people's expectation. You should do this. You got a degree. You should be aware. You should, like, all of these standards that was like thrown on me for so long. I finally was like, well, I ain't got nothing to lose now. Everybody, you know my deepest, darkest secret. All of my stuff is out here in front of the world. Yeah. So now what? Now I just can do whatever I want to do. Literally, like now I get to rebuild and do me the way that I want to do it, and not what everybody else is telling me or society is telling me I should do. And that coming back, people weren't necessarily accustomed to that.
Absolutely.
The people pleaser and the doer.
Me too.
Was like, they were like, people like, hold on now, you said no. you got boundaries for yourself. And I'm like, but prison also kind of made me feel like I was a little invincible, because it was like, what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? Yeah, I'm going to prison. Well, I already did that.
Exactly.
So now was like,
everything else is gravy.
That's easy. That's a cakewalk. Like, no, what are you gonna do? And so I came back a lot more focused. So I say selfish, but self-full.
I love that. Yeah. That is great. Yeah. That is great.
Because I was pouring from an empty cup. Yeah. Now my cup is full because I'm I had time to figure me out. Like, what do you want to do? What do you like?
Right.
When do you want to eat?
Right.
When do you want to go to sleep?
Right.
Which one of these 3 gray shirts do you want to wear? Which one of those? Or do you want to wear brown? You know, like, and I learned to be okay with the little.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
It is true. It is so true.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I am so busy throughout the day that it's super hard to quiet my mind at night when you have so much going on between your to-do list, what you have to do tomorrow, schedules, everything else going on in this world. But Boll and Branch sheets can help you truly unwind with a softness so extraordinary your whole body relaxes into sleep. Boll and Branch's signature sheets are made free from toxins with the finest 100% organic cotton. They feel buttery soft to start and even get softer with every wash. They come with a 30-night worry-free guarantee and are ethically crafted by expert artisans that earn fair wages. You guys know I have talked about Boll and Branch forever, but I was actually visiting Grayson in college this weekend and I had a whole bag of things to take with me. I had a new set of Boll and Branch signature sheets and he was so happy to get them. So I was able to change his bed, put the Boll and Branch sheets on him, and he literally texted me the next day and was like, Mom, these sheets are so much better than what I had on the bed. So if it pleases my 19-year-old, I can assure you they are the best. Feel the difference an extraordinary night's sleep can make with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com/confessions. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLANDBRANCH.com/confessions to save 15% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. We talked a little bit about this earlier. You know, we fought this case and have been dealing with this since 2012. And it was always in the background. And then as time progressed, it got closer and closer and closer and closer, you know, because it started out, it was a business dispute, you know, and I, contrary to what the media and prosecutors say, I had very little involvement in my husband's business. I just, you know, I was raising kids. I had a real estate company. I didn't have anything to do with his company. So he was even further removed from me. And then as things changed and as, you know, the show picked up and as then another prosecutor got it, you know, so this is something that went on for years and years and years. So for you to say, like, I was in prison long before I ever went to prison, it really was the case for me. And then, you know, a trial, which, you know, most people don't take theirs to trial when they have a federal indictment. They plead out and that's it. Well, we took ours to trial. Then, you know, we had the trial. Then that was in June. And then we didn't end up going to prison until the following January. So I felt like I was in prison for so long before I actually went. And Todd and I have talked about this, like when we first walked through those doors. Yes, I was afraid because I didn't know what to expect. But if I'm being 100% honest, there was almost a part of me that was like, yeah, it's over.
Yeah.
It's over. And I know it's crazy to say it's over when you're just walking through prison doors to serve a 7-year sentence. But for me, it was like, okay, this is over. Yeah. You know, I know what I got to do. I know I have an out date. I know I can do this. I know that I am strong enough to do this. And this is behind me. And I know that sounds crazy. And as hard as it was to leave my children, to leave my family, my husband, it was almost the sense of relief because all that was behind me. And it had taken up so much of our time, so much of our life that I can never get back. You know, and so those 28 months, I can never get that back either. But I also learned a lot in those 28 months.
I remember when one day we were in my room and I'd ask you, I said, tell me how you got here. But it wasn't how you got in prison. It was like, tell me your story. I don't know if you remember. And you walked me through pretty much your whole, like, the series of life events, like the major life events. And I remember when you told me that basically how many years the investigation had gone on, and it had gone on a vast majority of the time that you had filmed the first show. So I'm thinking about it like this, even when you were talking, if you think about how much you accomplished from that period of your life, incarcerated, do you know what you can do now that you're free?
That's good.
You know, if you think about I was under this kind of pressure and the fear of the unknown and all of that stuff. And we were able to do this. Yeah. Now that we're free, like free mentally, free physically, like the sky is like, there's no limit now. Yeah. Because
it's so true. Yeah. It's so true. And then, again, I'm always the realist, but then we always talk about, even though, and I'm so grateful, we received a full unconditional pardon, but there's still that stigma, there's still that, and when you talked about this of like, what am I going to do? I'm a college educated, smart woman, but what am I going to do because I have this thing still looming over me, because it really is and, there are other countries that when you do your time and you complete your prison sentence, your record is wiped clean so that you can truly start over. And I feel that to me, that's the way it should be here, because it should not have to be something that, and I get there's extenuating circumstances to everything. And I'm just talking like us. Right. But it shouldn't have to be something that's just lingering over you for the rest of your life. And I think people don't understand, we love to talk about prison reform and talk about, the rate of recidivism and why people go back and how dumb it is. Like, you went to prison and here you are going back. But people don't stop to think about that we turn people loose on the streets that have been incarcerated for sometimes years with very little rehabilitation, with no skills. And then you come out into a world where you're ostracized and where you're told no every single time. But you're expecting these kids sometimes that all they know is dealing drugs or being with a drug dealer, not to turn around and do the same thing again.
Right. And especially now, we were talking earlier, you said when you came out, you were surprised at the prices of food.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm not somebody, listen, I have had a very blessed life, and I've never, it's been a long time in my life since I've had to like penny pinch and worry about like how much this costs, how much that costs. It was so much just going to the grocery store or going to a fast food restaurant. It's insane. Like how somebody with just a 9 to 5 making a minimum wage, how you even survive.
Right. And I was only gone a year. And I always tell people, they say, what changed? I said, eggs and AI. I was like, those two things. Right. I was like, eggs, like, oh yeah, we won't be baking anything. And then I was like, AI. People kept talking about it. I was like, what is it? Literally that time frame was when I'm not gonna say it came out because it was probably already out, but became more in use to the general public. I was like, you do what? You tell it to do what? And so imagine someone who's been gone a longer period of time, or even who's gone now, and all the advancements, and they don't have the skills. You don't even have access to internet.
And that's what I think people don't realize. Like, I went for 28 months and never saw a computer. Right. I never saw a phone, never was able to Google anything. Right. So I mean, it took me back to like 1990 where I had to be at home at 9 o'clock to watch something on TV. Right. There is no streaming. There is no binge watching. No, you watch one episode every week of whatever show you're watching, and that's what you do.
And we had old throwback movies that probably that came out of Blockbuster, leftover Blockbuster film. That's what you're watching. Yeah. So when you come out, it's just like, hold on. What do you have to adjust to so many things, and the programming there, even if you think about how, because I worked in the education department when I first started, I was in GED, and the only thing that's required educationally by the BOP is that you get a GED. Right. There's no furthering past that. If you want to get a degree or whatever, you have to do the correspondence courses, and it's on paper. Yeah. It's writing.
Yeah.
Who's writing?
And I know that for our prison, there were no colleges that would even like partner with Lexington, so that the women could even do any kind of education.
Right.
So there's nothing.
No.
You hear like, it's crazy to me because, you would read things. Oh, I got my doctorate degree in prison, or I got my master's and I did this. That wasn't available to us. There was nothing like that available to us to better ourselves.
They introduced electrical and construction. I think they were trying to bring it kind of at the tail end.
Right.
But that was for the most part.
And this is my thing. Electrical and construction, that's all good and great. But even though it is 2025, you're going out here into a workforce as a felon, as a woman, competing against men in a predominantly male industry, and think that you're gonna have a leg to stand on.
Right.
And that was my thing, is like, why are we not teaching women to do things that women do?
Right.
And I'm not putting us in a box, because I believe we can do anything that we put our minds to, but you still have to be realistic in thinking that, okay, very few of us are going to go out here and be an electrician or be a plumber.
Right.
I mean,
They didn't have a lot of, I'll say, feminine leaning, and I'm being don't counsel me.
Right.
Trades even if we're talking trades, culinary had just gotten introduced, and it was at the male's prison, which we were kind of like the spew over, like the leftover, not a real program. You kind of semi in there, but even things that, and there's so many women, the talents and skills, the card makers, the people that's making posters.
Yes.
They didn't even have the beauty salon. I don't think they were given certifications.
No.
There's nothing. And there's people who have been there for years.
Yes. Yes.
And even the ones that's doing the technical stuff, a lot of those jobs now, again, they have software that they're using to do the jobs. That they're not trained.
They're
on
not
that
training
stuff.
that. They're training the most basic, antiquated version of everything that you can possibly do.
Right.
And and that's what I think. Yes, there's corruption. There's all the things that we continue talking about and everything. But at the end of the day, what are we doing to take all that away? What are we doing to really help women to be able to go out here, to be able to support their families, to be able to be a better mother, to be a better daughter, to be just a better version of themselves? We're not.
Right.
And thank goodness you and I have been able to maintain relationships, and you've said so many people have reached out to you just for help and guidance, and what do I do and where do I go from here? And to me, that's a blessing, because that also says that our time wasn't in vain.
No. And I'm honored that they believe in me enough to think that I can help.
Right.
I don't always have the answers, but we keep, every day we lay a brick. And one day we'll have the wall, right? I don't know exactly what the end result will be or how this is going to play out. But I strongly feel that all of my steps are ordered, every single one of them, even me going into that prison.
Absolutely.
And so there was a purpose for me being in there. And I wanted to make sure that I was a good steward of my time. And that I was in service to myself, so that when I came out, I was going to be a better version of me, which spewed over into me being a better mom, and to being a better friend, and being a better daughter, and being a better person just in general. And so now when I'm talking to the ladies, I keep saying, just hold on. It's coming. It's coming. Just keep putting it. I know you can't see it. Right. It may not be clear.
Right.
Don't go back.
Exactly.
Don't give up.
Exactly. But I think what people don't realize is, and Lexington was a little bit different, their setup, than other prisons. Lexington was not a standalone camp.
Right.
Lexington, for women, is a satellite camp off of the men's prison that is there, which is a medical facility. The women's camp is not a medical facility. It is a working camp.
Right.
And I know people in the press, they would always be like, something's wrong with Julie. She's at a medical facility. No, I was not.
No.
And the sad thing was, there were so many women that were sent there because judges thought they were going to get this special medical care. Right. They didn't even know. When they sentenced them to come to Lexington prison, they thought they were going to a medical center, and they weren't, because it was a working camp. And the women we had to do everything because the men's facility was what is considered behind the fence, meaning there were all custody levels there because most of the men were sent there because they had some kind of medical issue. So, I mean, we did everything, you know,
for both places.
Yes, for both places, for the men. So you had men sitting in there 24/7 doing nothing other than cooking for themselves or whatever they did inside those walls. But the women did all the maintenance on
lawns.
the vehicles, on all the lawn maintenance. I'm talking cutting trees, shoveling snow, doing all the grass cutting, weed eating, asphalt laying, everything.
Doing the floors,
yep.
pipes,
yes,
putting in cameras. Like the women kept the prison.
Yeah.
And they kept the men's prison. Like they were, you know, because the men couldn't come out of the fence. So everything on the camp, the women took care of it.
I know. And it's just crazy
when you think about
me.
it, right?
and keep in mind, for pennies, literally, it's the only place where slave labor is still live and kicking.
Right. Because one of the highest paying jobs would have been what, commissary in the warehouse.
Yeah, commissary I think was the highest paying position in there, and then like your warehouse. But these girls would go out and they would mow grass all day long, 5 days a week, and they might make $19 a month, $20 a month, you know. And it varied. It varied based on how much money there was to pay out, which was odd to me.
I didn't even look at it. I was like,
I mean, it's like
$30. I work and I have like $24, $30. And I'm teaching, I'm doing GED.
Yeah, you're teaching.
I'm trying to help people get their, a little bit of education that they can get, that their little bit of help they were offered in there. And it's just like, you know. Yeah.
It's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. But, you know, we kind of had our schedules down when we were there. I know you did too. Yeah. You know, Sharita actually did exercise a lot.
Yeah, I don't look like it, but I was exercising a whole lot whenever I was. That was my pastime.
Sharita took it old school. Yes. Sharita was doing some step classes.
Step, honey.
She was stepping on them old
boards.
What do you call them things?
The step boards.
Yes.
The little board thing.
Oh yeah, she was stepping it out under that pavilion. Under that pavilion.
Yeah, that was like when I got there. So when I first got there, I was like, I'm going in, I'm coming out looking like I'm gonna get fit. I'm gonna get fit or die trying. That was my goal.
Everybody has that goal.
I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna be fed fine. And so I remember when I was in the holding cell before, you know, when they process you through R&D.
Right.
I was in there doing push-ups, Julie, like in the holding cell, like, I'm gonna be buff when I come out of here. And so by the time I got over, I started walking the track. The track led to me taking classes and then stepping and then teaching the classes. And it was just like out from sun up to sundown, it had gotten to the point where I was just like, but it was a way to pass the time.
Right.
You know, prior to that, I was working in GED, and then we went to the culinary. And other than that, I was stepping.
Right. Yeah, you were stepping. But, you know, I feel like we made as good a use of our days as we could. We both stayed busy doing something, whether you were working in GED, I was working in commissary, you know, and you did kind of get that like schedule. I knew like, and that's why I like to work. You know, everybody was like, why did you work in there?
Driving that forklift.
I could not imagine not working because it helped the days go by so quickly, you know. And then you might be outside and it's 100 degrees. You come inside and it's 100 degrees, you know.
Right, which is why the culinary program was so, like, awesome, because we were getting air.
Yes.
We were really getting air.
Yeah. Where we did a lot of our work was in an air conditioned building, and that was like, oh, thank you, Jesus, this is a perk. I mean, it really was. It's sad to think that is considered a perk, but that was a huge perk.
Huge one.
You know, to be able to just have air.
Yeah.
You know,
because that building was getting up to 100 on those top floors.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first got there, that first summer, they were doing these like temperature checks. And on the third floor, it was like 120 degrees. I'll never forget that. That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I just remember people having those little sweat.
The little frog tog things.
Yeah. And just sitting, it was to the point where sometimes I would just sit there like, don't move.
Yeah.
Just lay here, because if I even move a muscle, the sweat is just pouring down. And then all the fans. Did you have a bunch of fans on your bed?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I had the fans everywhere. But and then like I said, you had the women that were outside working on cars all day, weed eating and mowing the lawns outside in the heat all day just to come into 100-degree weather. So it definitely was not a lap of luxury. Anybody says what club fed or whatever, they never been to a good club, obviously, because we were broke down.
And anytime your freedom is taken and your ability to move about in the world in the way that you choose, you're in prison.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you're behind a fence, and I always tell people, and they say, I am not in the suffering Olympics. No, I am not trying to out-suffer you.
Me either.
You can have all the badge of your hard prison time. Right. I am telling you what I experienced.
Absolutely.
And this was prison enough for me.
Yes.
It was enough for me.
Yeah,
So,
it was.
right.
It was. And, anytime you're... And even, I think sometimes in a camp, because you can move and you do have a lot. And I think where we've talked about this too, we had a lot of freedom.
Right.
But sometimes that's even worse because you're like, okay, if I can do this and there's one officer in this entire building all day and I can go and do as I please, why can I not be out here working?
Right.
Why can I not be on home confinement? Why can I not be being a productive member of society that I have been for the past 50 years?
And then if you slap me with a restitution, why don't I just go work and try to at least pay some? Like, why?
Exactly.
This 12 cents that you're giving me or whatever,
right?
How is this helping?
Exactly.
It's not.
It's not.
Right.
It's not. And that's where I think there's such this. It's going to always be this like constant give and take of is a camp really feasible? Is a camp? Does it make sense? What is it? Like, what is it? Because to me, if you can be in a camp, you can be on home confinement and have parameters of being on a job, of paying taxes, of paying restitutions, but at least you could be there with your family, with your kids, because, my dad did say this, and I agree. Most of the things I don't agree these days with him, but I did agree when he said, when your loved one is sentenced to prison, everybody's sentenced to prison.
Everybody.
It's not just us, but they were too in their own way, because when your loved one is somewhere where you can't get to them or they can't get to you, and everybody suffers. Everybody suffers. Yeah. And and I just don't think people realize it, because it's like with anything. If it doesn't affect you, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. Right. I can tell you, I never really thought about prison. I'd never experienced it on a personal level to know that, someone's sitting in there, they're relying on someone else to send money to them so that they can have hygiene, deodorant, toothpaste, that they're relying on someone else to send them a book or a letter or, money to be able to make a phone call, something that simple. We don't even think about it.
Right. I was just, when you were talking about that, those were some of the most exciting times whenever people were getting mail.
Yeah.
You remember the list would go up and it was almost like I just hope my name is highlighted, which meant you had mail. Or you were getting something, which in my opinion feels like I'm not forgotten.
Yes.
Somebody still knows that I exist. I'm here. Or that's what, something's coming in. It's a magazine. It's a book, because you didn't send it to yourself. Right. So someone, for the most part, something had to be initiated. And so it made you just, for me, feel like, I still matter.
Right. Yeah.
To somebody else.
And it kind of goes back to where we were talking about friendships and people that didn't forget about you, because you remember those people that just sent you a card or sent you a magazine or a book or, just took the time to email you, and the ones that you never heard from. Right. It does. You think about it. I mean, I've definitely thought about it,
Sure. And I know you probably had a lot of people who you didn't even know. I had a lot of individuals, I'll say this for myself, that I didn't even know cared. It was some of the most unlikely people.
Absolutely.
Were showing up
Absolutely.
versus the ones I thought were going to show up
that didn't.
Then I was like, oh, who is this? I mean, people that took the effort to go on the BOP website, figure out the address, sending me stuff.
Yeah, because that wasn't an easy feat.
No.
You know, everything they're very specific with what you can receive. You know, it got down so far as you couldn't send anything on lined paper, and color this or. It was just crazy, all the different parameters that they put on just someone being able to send you a letter.
Right.
Which is just crazy to me, but it
and then
is.
You remember
what
there
it
was
is.
photocopy, and you couldn't even get real photos unless they came through this, like
one of the apps.
One of the apps. Yeah. They were copying cards. You couldn't even get the actual card.
I know, which is just crazy. It was crazy to me, and I would tell people, I was like, don't spend a lot of money sending a card because I just get a copy of it.
Right.
And it's just so.
Right.
It was like, it was crazy. But listen, so tell me what you're working on right now.
Okay. So I was sharing with you in the car that when I was in Kentucky, I was debating my whole life, like, what do I want to do with myself? And I kept landing back on what I'm doing now, which is working with my daughter with our event company, which is another reason why I'm here in town.
Right.
And, we have been running Party of 5 events and doing a lot of events. It's been a blessing the way things worked out and came back, rebuilt the business. And so just working to expand and get more exposure for the business. And so that's my jig. Check me out.
I know it's amazing. I mean, I've seen, of course,
right.
on Instagram, and then I was able to see some photos and stuff that you have.
Right.
It is amazing. And it just goes to show you that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
It is.
There is. Yes, it was a crappy time. It was a crappy time for us, but we developed some amazing relationships.
Absolutely.
We came through better. I believe it. I believe better. I believe stronger. I believe more determined now. Because listen, we know what we've been through.
Right.
We know we're not going back there. So there's nowhere else to go but this way.
I asked you a question in the car. I said, hold on. I'm going to ask you when we get there.
Okay.
Did you have to have that experience for your life to be where you are right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I do. Now, I'm not saying I haven't had those times where I have questioned God, I've questioned myself, but absolutely, I believe it. And I believe that right now I'm on this cusp of what I'm supposed to do. What is Julie Chrisley really supposed to do? Where am I going to find this, what I'm truly meant? When am I coming in? And I know it sounds crazy at 52 to say, when am I coming into my true, authentic, what I'm meant to do? And I know that it's there. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like that what I went through is going to pave the way and going to be part of that journey moving forward, whatever it looks like.
And then the other part that I asked you in the car, I said, I ain't going to ask. I'm holding this off.
Yes.
The biggest change in you from pre-prison to Julie now. Like, how do you...
Okay. What is the biggest change for me? And I said this to you. I was not this soft, demure, delicate flower before. That just has never been me. It's really not me now. But I also feel like I have such a different perspective of life. I feel like things that mattered to me before don't matter. They matter differently now. Let me say that. It doesn't mean that I don't want a beautiful life, that I don't want things, that I don't want to be successful, but I see it differently now. Mm-hmm. I see, and listen, I'm 52 years old. There is this starting over to a certain degree. Now, listen, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I am so blessed and so favored, and that I am in such a better spot than 99.9% of people coming out of prison. I'm not going to sit and tell you that I'm not, because I have been. But there's still a starting over. there's still this rebirth that's taking place, because, you know, it's just the natural progression of life. And when something like this happens, that is so, and for me, in the spot, in the public eye, and you know, you have the naysayers, you have people that are going to support you, people that think we should be rotting in prison. That is what it is. I've not been one. Out of every member of my family, they will tell you, Mama is the one. She don't ever read a comment. She'll never pay attention. I know who I am. I know who I am. I know what my marriage is. So people out here that want to talk about my marriage, go ahead. That does not faze me. Doesn't faze me in the least. I don't even know where I was going with that. I just got off on a whole tangent.
Well, we were talking about how it changed.
Yes.
But you said something that made me spark another thought. I feel like I would tell people, when you've accomplished a lot and you lose it, that's a different feeling for when you are striving to get somewhere that you never get there. But when you got it and it's like right in the palm of your hands, and I don't know if you've had this, like if you feel this way, I feel like, but you had it all and you lost it. This is a different rebuild.
It absolutely is. It's absolutely. And to say, the older you get, the harder it is. I mean, I'm just being honest, because listen, and you experienced this in a way that I can't even begin to. But I think being in prison, it causes you to really look at your own mortality and look at, okay, I'm sitting in here in this prison, really accomplishing nothing, and I've got less days on this earth to live than I've already lived more of my life than I have left to live. And that's a sobering thought. So it causes me to almost panic. Like, oh my gosh, there's so much more that I want to do. There's so much more that I want to accomplish. I got to get busy, because I've lost 28 months of my life that I can't get back. 28 months that I can never recover. But that's why these next 28 months I got to really do something.
Right.
You know, and I think we will.
I think so. I mean, I hope cooking is part of it.
Me too.
I remember
excited.
Those big sandwiches that you used to, in the culinary program, y'all. She used to make us these sandwiches, and they have like 59 pieces of meat. They were the biggest sandwiches, and you would bring them. And I was telling, I'm going to share this whenever I post it. Whenever you all got pardoned.
Yes.
I was telling Todd earlier, I got drugged through the mud, honey. I think I told you.
Right.
Here is supporting the man, you know.
Right.
And I was like, listen, let me tell you something. I know her. I saw her in that prison. I saw her level of excellence and integrity in a dark place, that she made a sandwich with perfection, even in the middle of a storm. This is who showed up. So you can't tell me anything about what she believes in and that. I'm going to stand on that. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay with being wrong. But I saw her, whenever there were no lights, when there were no cameras, make a sandwich for some women and give it and say, would you like this? That's the Julie that I know. So you're not going to be able to come at me about who somebody supports and all that stuff. That's
because
no,
you know
to
what?
Me.
We lived together. We did everything together. And you know what? Those things, they never were ever a topic of conversation for us.
No one is worried.
No one cares.
Y'all are more worried about it than we are.
Than we were.
Right.
Because I think that was the beauty of it. It was the beauty of being able to come from different places, different cultural backgrounds, different, like I said, religious backgrounds, political backgrounds, whatever it was. And none of it mattered.
Right.
We were worried about how we were going to cook on a radiator, or how we was going to stay cool, or how we were going to salvage some ice from the ice machine. Right. That was what we were worried about. And then we were worried about, are your girls good? Right. How's your mama doing? Right. You made it back. You made it through that. Right. That's what we were worried about. None of that other stuff mattered. And really and truly, if we could take that same mentality, and I hope that we can do that, our little piece of the world, that we can bring that with us to say, that other stuff doesn't matter. This is what matters. This matters that we showed up for each other. Right. It might have been a sandwich. It might have been walking a track together. It might have been whatever it was. We showed up.
Right.
And that's really what it's about. I love you.
I love you too.
Thank you so much for being here today. It won't be the last time.
Okay. I'm always here. You know that.
And until next time, thank you so much for everybody for tuning in today, and find us wherever you get your podcast. Chrisley Confessions 2.0.